Indiabulls Ventures is joining us on the show right now. Manav, good afternoon to you. What are you doing? It's an extremely dull market this afternoon. Nothing much is happening, but still around 10,900.
Yes, in fact, the markets have been consolidating since last 10 to 15 trading sessions. And, after such a good rally from the recent lows of 10,000, a consolidation is basically the markets is trying to form a higher base. The overall structure still remains positive. So, we are witnessing a time correction and we haven't witnessed any price correction. So, which is still indicating a positive undertone for us. As long as 10,500 support levels are holding, we still maintain our bullish stance, and there is a very high chances that we could be breaking above this trading range and possibly would be testing the levels of 11,300 and 500 in next few months to come. So even at the current levels, I think if the Nifty approaches, or there are a lot of stock specific approach which we are recommending at the current levels, looking at the charts for Bank Nifty, in fact has formed a series of higher highs compared to the Nifty. So there has been a good outperformance in the banking space, particularly led by the PSU banks, and we are still expecting this momentum to continue on the upside. So once Bank Nifty breaches 27,600, which is very close to its resistance level, you will see a new momentum shift coming on the upside, and we will not be surprised to see the levels of 28,000 to 28,300 in the near term. So recently also we've seen a good base building and breakout happen in the IT index. I think in next couple of trading sessions you would see this follow-up move coming in. So at the current levels, I think we still recommend buying the frontline index. Even the Nifty, I think 11,300 could be likely. Above 10,950 you will definitely see a momentum, but one should not ideally wait for the breakout to happen, can still look to buy at the current levels.
Okay. What are you doing with stocks, Manav?
Yes, I have two buy calls. My first pick is on Bharti Airtel. In fact, this is more of a contrarian play. If you look at the medium-term scale, the prices have already seen a decline of 45% from its recent peak of 565, and the overall decline was in five-wave structure. So at the current levels, we are expecting a good retracement rally, and the prices have also tested its important crucial support zone of 300 and has bounced from these levels. I sense in the near-term perspective, the stock has bottomed out and could see a rally of at least 15% from the current level, since it is also bouncing from its weekly and monthly oversold and support levels. So it's a buy at the current zone with a stop of 315 for an upside target of 385. My second pick would be buy on AMARAJABAT batteries. Again, the stock has been forming a strong support clusters around the levels of 700 odd, and recently the prices have witnessed a short-term trend reversal and has formed a minor higher bottom. So it is showing that early signals of a trend reversal. There has been a breakout on the weekly charts, and the momentum oscillators also in AMARAJABAT batteries is showing some sort of a good crossover signal. I think in the near term, this stock could be a good outperformer, and it has also managed to close above 100 EMA. So a lot of positive signals are falling at a place, since it is also providing a good margin of safety. A stop loss of 740 in AMARAJABAT batteries for an upside target of 820. Hold period could be at least 1.5 months.
Okay, interesting. So a couple of trading ideas from Manav Chopra's side as well. Manav, for somebody who went long on a Z in the morning or maybe yesterday, and seen the gains getting eroded, what would you do here? Would you stay long, or would you take the money off the table, or rather take the position off the table?
Neeraj, honestly, Z is a stock that one should keep look to buying at the lower levels. On the monthly scale, the prices have declined from its recent peak of 620. It is forming a strong support clusters around the levels of 410 to 420 on the lower side. So the prices are still coming closer to its strong support clusters. There has been a lot of volatility near the range of 420 to 480 on the upside, but I sense the prices are forming important supports, and it is continuously been forming a series of minor higher bottoms. And when we are looking also on the momentum oscillators monthly front, most of the oscillators have shown positive divergence, which is hinting for a near-term trend reversal. So in the near term, I will not be surprised to see if the stock actually manages to rally and break above the 475 mark and eventually rally towards the 510 to 530, we are, I would be very closely looking at near the levels of 440. So in case if there is a short-term dips, it's definitely a buy and dips approach, purely because the risk-reward ratio is also very favorable into this stock.
Okay. Two stocks which are extremely active this afternoon, and the volumes also are supporting the pricing action, is Graphite India and HEG. Both of them strong moves coming in there. We've got a Graphite India higher by 8.5%, 755 on the counter. HEG is moved up as well, about 5% odd. Looking at these two names right now and the action that's there today, would you be a buyer in any of these, Siddharth? I'm sorry, Manav.
Okay, so the prices have witnessed an intraday reversal. There has been a spike move that we witnessed, and in fact the prices have actually also declined from its today's high. I sense this should ideally be avoided, such patterns, and where the prices have seen a sharp decline from its intraday peak and nearing to its mean level. So this usually leads to some sort of sideways consolidation, or eventually we don't see a good momentum building up. In fact, the prices have also been in a short-term downtrend. So my suggestion is that one should actually pass or avoid trading into this. In case anybody is holding it, I would still suggest that one should exit and then wait for a fresh breakout to happen. For HEG, I recommend any fresh position should be initiated only if the stock closes above 3800 levels, and for graphite only short-term long position should be initiated above 800, because we still need some more confirmation for a short-term trend reversal to happen. But I still recommend that there'll be some better stock recommendations in the market and can be avoided.
Stay on, Manav. So much more to talk about. Before we get in our fundamental guest on the show, let's bring in Sharad Dubey, who's standing by with the list of stocks that are gaining in trade today. Sharad.
Good afternoon, Neeraj. The first stock I've picked up is Sheela Foam, which is down by almost 3%. It's falling for the 6th straight day. This is based on the MK downgrading it from hold to buy and also reducing the target price from rupees 1752 to rupees 1364. This is mainly due to the drop seen in the demand for the mattresses. Apart from this, the second stock I've picked up is Asian Granito, which is up by almost 8%, its highest levels in almost a week, after GMO Emerging Dom Opportunities Fund sold around 3.2 lakh shares, which is around 1% of its equity share capital at around 130 odd rupees. The third stock is Avanti Feeds, which is up by almost 3%, its highest levels seen in a week, after the US exports rose around 2.8 crores kgs of shrimp US, valuing at around $250 odd million in October 2018. The total shrimp exports have also increased by around 11.5% in terms of value and around 16.8% in terms of volume. Back to you.
Thanks a lot for that, Sharad. Well, certainly some of these companies are doing well in the session today. Let's get in Siddharth Sedani of Anand Rathi. He joins us right now on the show with his thoughts. Siddharth, good having you. Thanks much for joining in. A couple of mid-sized pockets that I want to start with before we get to the large-cap conversations. Firstly, the upticks that we've seen in HEG, graphite, and these commodity-based stocks. I think Rain Industries too was up about 5%. Chalk and cheese, but I'm just using all of them in the same breath. Do you guys have coverage here?
Good afternoon, Neeraj, and thank you so much for having me on the show. Who knows better than you that graphite we've been covering since June 2017 at 165, and the prices have become like a multi-bagger over the period of so many quarters. Right now we don't have much of a view about graphite or HEG for that matter. HEG is relatively better placed than graphite in terms of fundamentals are concerned as of now. But we don't have a recommendation on either of them. In fact, we like a little bit of a Philip Carbon where the margins were good enough and the overall results happen to be in line with the expectations. Philip Carbon Black can be one of the stock in the carbon black space. Looks interesting. If I talk about electrodes, I would not like to take my neck out and select any of the stock between graphite and HEG.
Okay. The other set of stocks, Siddharth, that have done well today, the trade data that came out revealed that the shrimp exports to the US from India has gone up both in value and volume terms. I reckon that's part reason why the likes of Avanti Feeds and the others are doing well in the session today. Any fundamental bottom-up coverage that you have on that sector?
No, Neeraj, unfortunately we don't have any coverage on any of the companies from the sector.
No issues, but somehow the stocks seem to be doing rather well for themselves in the session today. Okay, we're seeing some bit of pressure on HUL and ITC in the session today. HUL in particular down about 1%. Results coming out tomorrow. Siddharth Sedani, what is anticipated, and could there be a case or room for some disappointment here?
I don't think so, Neeraj, because the kind of numbers which they have posted in terms of volumes, I think that run rate should continue, and we have an anticipation that HUL will be putting up better than expected numbers. I think volumes would be one part which everybody would be looking out, and in fact in coming quarters also we believe that HUL volumes will be much better, because at least a quarter or two it will take in terms of synergies working out with Horlicks, but I think once it's done, volumes is definitely going to go up, because they have a strong foothold. Horlicks has a strong foothold in north and west part of the country and a good distribution network, which will be in hand benefiting to HUL's network. Overall perspective, we expect a good set of numbers, and we believe that consumption will be the main theme for 2019, and we know that the budget is right at the corner on 1st of Feb, and the government will be planning a lot of things and a lot of soaps for common men as well as the rural part of the country, and once it is done, then I would say the consumption is going to flow, and HUL would be the biggest beneficiary, because I would like to share you one piece of data that per capita consumption of FMCG product in India currently stands out at around 1,000 rupees, whereas in some part of the emerging markets it is double the size of India, and if I talk about China, it is 4 times of India's per capita consumption. So there is a lot of big room and penetration left, and who would be benefiting the best out of this is the leader of the space, HUL.
True. Okay. By the way, the numbers from DCB Bank are out. Net profit at 86 crores versus 57 crores YOY. I'm waiting for the NPA numbers to come out. 1.92 versus 1.84. The NPA numbers don't look all that bad either. The net NPAs too have risen ever so marginally. And the NII numbers should also come up. We as of now have the net NPA and the gross NPA numbers. The NII numbers have by and large seem to be in line with estimates. The stock just coming off a little bit, but this is the trading syndrome. Don't get caught into it. The net profit numbers look okay. NII in line with estimates. Any coverage here? DCB Bank. What are your thoughts here, Siddharth?
See, prima facie numbers looks in line, and I don't think there is much of a slippages which can be seen. DCB, in fact, in the smaller banking space, we are more constructive towards Federal Bank or Karnataka Bank for that matter, rather than DCB, and we believe these two banks, Karnataka and Federal Bank, looks more interesting than any other small cap bank. One bank I would like to pinpoint is CUB, City Union Bank, although the target price is very near to our current market price, but we believe current City Union Bank is also has a strong credentials and strong fundamentals to move ahead.
Okay. Let's take a look at Jet Airways now. The stock is almost back to pavilion from where it started off, and the last 2 days where it saw those big moves coming in, taking in past that 300 mark, now back at 275. This is one of the worst intraday drops in over 2 months for Jet Airways, down about 6.5%. Today is going to be important, Neeraj, to see what actually comes off from that meeting between the lenders and the airlines. They have up until 21st to come up with a plan, a revival plan of sorts, so that to submit to the lenders. But whether or not it's going to be something that's going to come out in the form of fund infusion from existing lenders, restructuring of debt, where there's going to be an additional stake. I mean, the rounds obviously are that Etihad is going to be the one.
Yeah, I mean, all of these options and all of these possibilities on the table. At some point of time in the show, we'll get in Sumit to talk about this as well. But purely from a shareholder perspective, I would believe it'd be hazardous to take a call on the stock ahead of complete knowledge of what happens here, because at what prices any possible potential deal would come out is also a big question mark on what the stock price does in the near term.
Well, a lot of levels floating around, to say the least. 274 right now for Jet Airways, 18 points under. Siddharth, Jet Airways for you?
Well, Devina, I would not like to touch upon any of the airline space for investments for that matter. Trading perspective can be done according to a technical chartist, but overall perspective, I still believe the kind of news which is floating around, or rumors which are floating around, increase in stake of Etihad, or the promoter Naresh Goyal stepping down, I think these all things will be definitely at the right direction. And because of that, stock got excited. But again, volatility is too much, because today someday it is up by 10% and someday it's down drastically. So I would not like to touch upon any of the airline stock in terms of investments are concerned, because crude and many other variable factors are there which are affecting the entire space. So it's better off to trade it off.
The other one that's probably maintained this course of moving up has been a Yes Bank. And today's session 2 is no different. The stock in the last 3 or 4 trading sessions has been continuously riding on a new high. So you've got about 207 on Yes Bank. Took down that level, that resistance that it faced for quite some time around that 190, 195 level, and now comfortable above 205 as well. So that's the last 7 days where it's given you returns of 10% for Yes Bank. Manav, on the charts for Yes Bank?
Yes, in fact, the prices have witnessed a good amount of momentum in last couple of trading sessions, since it has breached its 195 resistance zone, which was earlier marked as a stiff resistance for at least 2 or 3 weeks. And most importantly, there has been a increase in delivery based volume. So that is also another positive thing when we are looking for a very short term perspective. And the prices are also bounced from its deep oversold zone. I sense this kind of short term momentum play would definitely continue in the near term, and the targets of at least 220, 225 is likely to be achieved. So anyone who's holding this position, I recommend that it's important to have a trail stop loss. So a stop loss of 200 for any fresh long positions, or anybody who's holding this stock since lower levels. I think 200 could be a good trail stop loss, and eventual targets for a very short term perspective could be 220 to 225.
Okay, Siddharth Sidani, before we let you go, one non-large cap idea that you like and the rationale thereof, and can people hold it for a slightly longer period of time?
Well, of course, one non-large cap idea from the mid cap space, if I find it out, would be Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. Well, again, a retail space and a consumption story altogether. But let's understand the fact that since last 2 quarters, it's been posting a turnaround quarter. It's been posting profit versus losses on the corresponding year quarter. Numbers has been good because two part of business which they are going through. One is Madhura Lifestyle, which has consists of Peter England, Alan Solly, and many other brands, which is giving a same store growth of around 9%. Whereas in Pantaloons, same store growth is not coming up, but I think overall volumes have been increasing. Plans for Pantaloons going ahead is 40 to 50 store addition, whereas in the same store growth category, they've been doing good in terms of Madhura Lifestyle. Their innerwear brands has been really penetrating in the markets quite strongly, and management is expecting a strong pickup in terms of volumes are concerned from that. So overall perspective, Aditya Birla Fashion numbers are also expected to be good. We are expecting around 180 odd crores for the entire year FY19, and we believe that this company can put a good show going ahead. Although the stock has been doing fabulously well over a period of last 1 quarter, but the target for this stock can be 239.
Okay, Siddharth, just going to take some viewer queries that have come in, and a fundamental view on a Bandhan Bank and a Group Finance now post the announcement, and also within the larger banks, how does Kotak Bank stack up if you were to make an investment from a 3 to 4 year horizon?
Well, Bandhan Bank after the deal looks more interesting compared to what it was before. And in fact, I would say the business which it possesses, I think it's been good business. Only one kind of a black spot which has arisen is RNFS investments. But apart from that, I think nothing wrong has been done in the history. Overall perspective, the kind of NIMs it posts, it's quite fabulous, and it cannot be competed with any of the banks which Bandhan Bank holds in terms of net interest margins. So it's a good bank to stay in, stay put. We don't have a particular recommendation from Bandhan. And even the second query which you have is on the Kotak Mahindra Bank. Of course, it's a strong franchise to own, a historically proven bank, and great aggressive bank, strong NIMs, strong CASA. In fact, going ahead, I think loan book also will be doing fabulously well. We don't have a particular coverage, so one can keep holding with a 3 to 4 year perspective. If asked to me with an option to buy a particular private sector bank and which one bank it could be, I would name that as HDFC Bank. Because again, it's a proven story since many quarters, I would say 40-50 quarters now. It's been posting a consistent set of numbers, and we believe the management extension till 2020, I think that's also strong enough. I think the bank is in good shape. Growth can be a big compounder for this company. Stable company, and I would say looking at the valuations, if somebody is concerned, then I would always like to counter argue with that in terms of growth is concerned. So HDFC Bank with a target of 2400 also looks very interesting to me if given an option to me.
Siddharth, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so very much for taking out the time this afternoon. Manav, just come to you with one more query that's coming in, that's on Sterlite Tech. The stock actually, you know, when it started its free fall sometime in early November from levels of 380 odd, it's come down to 280 now, not doing a whole lot much. Do you see a reversal anytime soon for Sterlite Tech at all?
It looks very unlikely at the current moment. In fact, you know, the undertone and the structure is looking very weak. In fact, the kind of reversal that it has seen, and especially breaking the crucial weekly and monthly supports decisively without any retracement rally, is talking itself, you know, how poor the structure has become. And eventually the recent consolidation is also likely to break on the lower side. Will not be surprised to see if the stock retests its levels of around 240 to 250. So even at the current levels, I sense, you know, if the stock breaks below 275 on the closing basis, this stock could slide another 10-15%. So it's important anybody who's holding this should definitely take care, and, you know, eventually break below 275, be ready for another 15% plunge.
Okay, got that. We're going to take a very short break on that note, but we've got lots to discuss with our technical experts. But in the meantime, you can hear out the top brass at Citi Research and what they expect out of Q3.
See, from a quarter perspective, what we are expecting is that the OMCs, the oil marketing companies, will essentially pull down the reported earnings. Okay. So if you look at Nifty, ex-OMCs, we have a profit growth estimate of around 12% YOY. Again, which is also lower than what possibly was the expectation for the full year going into the year. But that's what is really pulling down numbers. If you exclude that, 12% is a decent number, but with that, it's practically no growth. So that's where we expect the outcome to be. I think what is happening in this, or what we expect to happen in this quarter, is that the top line growth will be pretty decent. So for the Nifty companies, we are expecting around 16-17% top line growth YOY. But there are firstly inventory losses in OMCs. That's what we expect. Secondly, autos, we expect some impact of discounting and what we saw last quarter. So margin pressures, right? Similarly, commodities, metals, etc. We are expecting a pressure there. So when you put it all together, the overall growth still looks relatively muted, I would say.
Okay. So relatively muted bottom line growth for sure. What you pointed out the pain points. What about the larger themes, and how do you expect them to perform? Because I think a lot of what used to be consensus expectations have become anti-consensus expectations on a number of sectors. Some have moved from positive to negative, some have moved from negative to positive as well. What do you think will drive this set of numbers that will come in?
Yeah. So I think the biggest driver is financials, where we are expecting, among the Nifty names, we are expecting a 45% odd growth in financials, YOY. Now, and again, Manish is here, he can talk more about it, but one of the themes is, see, the retail banks were anyway doing well. The turnaround is starting to happen on the corporate side, and which is what is giving you this 45% growth. So that's, I think, the number which really stands out this quarter, or we expect to stand out this quarter. Because on the other side, like if you go beyond that, then staples we expect a 14-15% growth, which is quite steady, I would say, but staples is normally very steady. Utilities is 10-12%, IT what we had expected was 7-8%. So those sectors are anyway relatively more stable. So the outlier on the positive side, what we expect this quarter is essentially financials.
Surendra, the other thing is your report, you said that you have an expectation of an earnings downgrade that would come in FY19 and FY20. The second quarter was not good at all. It was rather muted and all. Wouldn't that be priced in? The expectation anyway post the second quarter numbers would have been toned down. Yeah. So, and with 4 Nifty companies already coming out and them reporting rather muted numbers, no blockbuster, won't that be in the price already? Yeah. Won't people be expecting that this can be that?
So I think couple of questions there based on what you asked. So say for last quarter, through the season and maybe a little after the season, we saw a 7% earnings downgrade. Yeah. Okay, so to that extent, yes, you are right, a big part got captured, but I think expectations were very elevated to begin with. Okay. Right? So like even after that downgrade, when I look at our bottom-up expectations, we have some 14-15% growth this year and 20% growth expectation next year. And some of the numbers I have all seen on the street are even higher for next year. And to that extent, I think, yes, part of it has gotten priced in, but I think there is still room to go, because somehow the inherent assumption maybe 6 months back was corporate banks will really come back, which is happening. But then at that time you really didn't expect that metals will be weak, there will be inventory losses and autos will come under pressure, because that's not what the outcome was at, or outlook was at that time. So I would still think that there is some more room for the numbers to get downgraded. Okay.
Rashi, we'll talk about, he spoke about metal, he spoke about autos, and metals as one pack. And I think the consensus view is that since how the commodity prices have moved and the spreads have actually squeezed for a lot of steel companies, are you expecting the numbers to be even worse than what the street is anticipating?
See, on India, you know, the numbers in the next quarter should be worse than the numbers in this quarter. Because what we've seen is that the majority of the price cuts in steel in India came through in November and then December. And even right now, the domestic steel prices are at a premium to import parity. So my guess is we still see some more price cuts coming here. So the big chunk of the pressure effectively kicks in the Jan to March quarter. That said, I think the big surprise element could come from Tata Steel, their European business, because in their volume release, they've clearly highlighted that they've had operational issues, which is going to have an impact on the financial side. And I think that can sort of swing the estimates for the street quite a bit, because it can have a significant impact on either side.
Interesting. What else would you watch out for? I think people have painted the year as to be a year of recovery for metals, but aside of Tata Steel, anything else in the metal space that you would particularly watch out for?
See, so, you know, just taking a step back from what you said, we actually downgraded the steel space between November and December, first going to neutral and then going to a sell on all our stocks. Okay. So I think that's also a little bit of a non-consensus of sorts, you know, where basically we think that the China property market is likely to see some decline in the starts, and that's going to have a follow-through effect into India. In any case, Indian steel prices are at a premium, and Indian valuations don't stack up particularly attractively versus the global peers. So, you know, aside from the quarter, I would anyway keep watching out for the China trends. On the non-ferrous side, we've also seen like a fair bit of weakness across the commodity prices. You know, what we need to watch out generally for is what's going on in, you know, the recovery in the aluminium market, like the alumina, refineries, etc., which have closed globally. And if we see some sort of an improvement based on, you know, what happens in China over there. But effectively, I think at this point in time, there's really little to look forward to on a positive basis on the metal side. You know, that's what we think.
Delegates. Welcome back. You're watching a countdown right here on Bloomberg Quint. It's, well, some ticks of green on the Nifty bank, but that's about it. The Nifty is lying absolutely flat. We've already marked the European indices. They are a mixed bag. FTSE's down marginally. CAC and DAX were marginally in the green. Now it's only CAC, which is up about 1/3%. DAX too has flattened out completely. The turnover from our market should come up on your screen, and let's just see what's it looking like? Well, cash is still staying subdued. F&O turnover has picked up marginally compared to yesterday. Let's see where we end. Okay, let's find out what's made it to Yash Upadhyay's list of the Fab 4 stocks of the day. Johnson right now with that. Yash, good afternoon. What's made it to your list?
Afternoon, Neeraj. I'll start with Philips Carbon, and that one came out with a decent set of numbers. Revenues have grown by 54% on a year-on-year basis. Margins have expanded by about 120 basis points, as well as nearly a doubling of the net profit. So the stock is up about 2%. Watch out for that. Torrent Pharma is also up 2% on the back of high open interest build-up on the long side of nearly 23%. The graphite electrode makers are in focus. So Graphite India is up 8% today on the back of a Steel Mint report suggesting that Japanese graphite electrode maker Tokai Carbon has hiked the graphite electrode contract prices by nearly 3,700 ton per annum for the first half of 2019. As well as Indiabulls Integrated is locked in an upper circuit of 5% after the company's arm received the regulatory approval from IRDAI for setting up its life insurance business. Back to you.
All right, Yash, thanks very much for that. That is the Fab 4 stocks of the afternoon. Let's bring in Rahul Mohinder of Virotech Software. He's joining us on the show right now. Along with him, Vineet Bulinshkar of Ventura Securities is also going to be here with us in a few moments. Rahul, let's start off first with the Nifty and 10,900, a touch and go quite a few times now. Do you think we'll be able to hold fort in the coming few days to come, and would your call then be more positive?
Good afternoon. I think first of all, over the last couple of weeks, I've been mentioning this level quite often, 10,930 odd, being very significant resistance for the Nifty. I don't think it's going to be an absolute cakewalk to go through this level. I still think there's going to be a lot of tossing and turning all the way down to the support level of 10,630 odd. So the market will maintain a bit of a range, in my opinion. We will be a little more range bound. I'm not saying that we don't have the possibilities of continuing the uptrend, but I think the odds are more tilted towards being within the band. Of course, a breakout from the band is what everyone is really waiting for, so that the markets gain traction. And when you look at major stocks, I still think it's banking that continues to take the lead, which is why my stand on the bank Nifty is positive, where we think that we might move up to levels of 27,900, which is what's making me think that maybe the Nifty will also follow through. So keeping 27,100 as a support and a stop, the bank Nifty continues to be positive to us much more than the Nifty.
Rahul, you've got some ideas as well on specific stocks. You're liking an Axis Bank and you're buying Bharti Airtel.
Absolutely. Axis Bank, again, within the current market players, 705 is our target. So we're seeing a new intermediate top here. 645 being a stop loss. I'd buy this for a short-term view of just about anything between 2 to 4 weeks. If you're looking at Bharti Airtel, I think what I've started noticing is a key resistance level on the stock is starting to get taken out. So here too, it's a buy call. 355 is our immediate target on the stock. We're keeping a stop loss at 324 here. So we clearly think there's a bit of a breakout happening.
Okay, so that's an idea as well. Do watch out for Bharti, Rahul Mohinder as a buy. We'd want to get both Manav and Manav and as well as Rahul's view on Jet Airways as well. Maybe get Vineet Bulinshkar into the conversation too. But first, let's get in Sumit Sarkar from our research desk, because lenders of Jet Airways are set to meet today, are definitely going to meet today to discuss a possible turnaround plan. Stock has fallen the most in 2 months today. What happens if the lenders don't find a second investor and it's left to Etihad to bail it out, which also might have some stiff conditions? Sumit Sarkar's done that math in Johnson. Sumit.
Well, if Etihad is putting in money in Jet Airways, it will be the second time in the last 6 years where they will be doing so to help Jet Airways. Now, various reports suggest that Etihad might invest in the company and will increase its stake close to 49%. That is the maximum limit allowed from current 24%, or due to this regulation cap of 49%, Jet Airways can only issue 5.6 crore equity shares to Etihad. So if it issues these equity shares, then Naresh Goyal's holding in the company would come down to close to 34% from current 51%, while that of Etihad will increase to 49%, and that of the remaining public shareholders, and that would come down to around 17% from current 25%. So approximately close to 33% equity dilution that we'll see because of this fund infusion. Now Jet also has the option to issue non-convertible preference shares and or debentures to Etihad, but the same won't give any voting rights to Etihad. So this option is less likely to happen, because if Etihad is looking to pump in money for the second time in Jet Airways, they would definitely want voting rights for this. But remember earlier when Jet Airways had issued some non-convertible debentures worth close to 700 crore rupees, Etihad was the only one to fully subscribe to this NCD. So this option is also open for Jet Airways. Now at present, Jet needs close to 1700 crore rupees. That is the amount that they need to pay back to their bankers by the end of financial year 2019. So that is the bare minimum amount that Jet Airways will be looking to raise from Etihad. Now given the current market price, if Jet raises close to 1700 crore rupees from Etihad, it will have to do so at a share price of close to 302.5 rupees per share. That is a premium of close to 3% to yesterday's closing share price. But if Jet needs more money, and that it could need more money, because if you remember earlier, Jet was facing problems to pay back to its operational creditors and employees. So if it requires a higher amount, then Etihad will have to fund this through a higher premium in Jet Airways. Now, why this premium that Etihad will have to pay to Jet Airways? Because of this 49% FDI cap. Now Jet can only issue 5.6 crores, so the infusion has to be done at a premium to the current market price. Now there is no doubt that this fund infusion will improve Jet Airways' balance sheet. It will not only lower its debt, but also reduce the negative net worth that Jet Airways currently has in its balance sheet. But more importantly, this fund infusion will improve Jet Airways' credit rating, which is currently at a default rating. Now, this improvement in credit rating could also lower Jet's interest cost going forward, and bankers could also extend the borrowing limit for Jet Airways if this credit rating improves for the company. Now, after this fund infusion, Etihad will become the majority stakeholder in the company, which means that Jet's rating could be revised to that of Etihad's A rating from current default rating that Jet Airways has.
Right, Soumya. Thanks very much for putting that into perspective for us. From a trade point of view, while this is what plays out and what comes out of today's meet left aside, what would you do, Rahul, with the Jet?
See, I think we're playing in a very rough spot, but at the same time, there's one very big indicator that I have here is the volume. If you look at the amount of volume Jet has clocked alone in the last 3 trading days, including today, it is definitely double the average volume, which kind of tells me that the market will probably panic if a level of 246, 47 starts breaking down on a close. So we're still 20 rupees away from that support. I'm not saying we will break it, but I must caution traders to keep a stop loss on long positions if it breaks 246 on a close particularly. If you're looking at buying the stock, it's going to be a very, very aggressive stand. There are no medium to long-term buy signals on the chart, so I would stay away from it. Instead, look for a shorting opportunity.
Vineet Bolinjkar of Ventura is with us as well. Vineet, good afternoon. Thanks for joining in. If you were, or if any of your large clients were inclined to buy or were holding Jet Airways, what would your advice be to them? It's right now at the edge of, at a crossroad wherein either of the options can happen and you don't quite know what will be favorable for shareholders.
So let's analyze the situation. Yeah. Currently, their debt is about 7,700. And based on previous calculations, it was expected to come down to 6,700 crores. And it was good for the short term. Okay, but there are other factors to it. At that point, it was expected that the shareholding of Naresh Goyal would come down to 30%. But right now, with Etihad wanting more stake, and they do not want their shares to be unencumbered, they don't want to pledge their holding. So there are a lot of issues around this, and without any kind of collateral, the bankers are not ready to lend. So it's a very bad situation. And given this, and the second thing is that there is going to be a sharp slowdown going ahead in terms of market share. So with the capacity growth coming in from other players, Jet is getting into a sale and lease back. We are not going to see significant capacity additions, which will keep pace with their market share, So that is going to come down. So given all these factors, and as we know that this industry is very frugal, slight deviations in costing, really impacts their bottom line. So given an industry which is generally coherently very volatile in nature, and in that you have a bad player, I do not want to be in the stock. So my bet would be to get out of it. If you want, you can look at the stock once after the all the uncertainties around it clear, and then take a rational decision based on how the future will flow in this company, given the facts that I mentioned. So for me, this is the stock that I do not want to touch from an investor's point of view. Yes, there would be trading opportunities and you would get good 20-30% kind of fast moves. This stock is known to move in a very volatile range. So it's a trader's play and not an investor's delight.
Okay. 12 months, stock's been down 65% in today's session too. 8% already given up, and volumes are picking up thick and fast. So about 38 million shares already traded on the stock, declining 8% odd. Mindtree is one stock you need to keep an eye out on the back of its Q3 numbers. The entire IT space, at least yesterday, was the one that led from the front. So you had the IT index soar 3% in yesterday's session. Today's session, slightly more muted. Nifty IT, but still in the green, 1/3% higher, alongside what the Nifty Bank has been doing. Vineet, would you do anything within the IT pack? Would you have any names there that you would like to invest in from a slightly longer term horizon? I'm talking about the mid-cap IT names, the likes of a Mindtree, a Hexaware, an Emphasis.
So we like Majesco, Mastec, and Persistent. So these are some of the names that I personally like, and we will look to invest in these stocks gradually, not go all the way gung-ho on these stocks, but gradually look to invest in these stocks based on the kind of news flow that comes through.
Persistent, Vineet. Somehow it's persistently disappointed investors. No visible advantages of being the first mover on digital. Almost every second quarter they come out with a warning about how this quarter they would miss estimates because of XYZ reasons. It's been a disappointing performance over the last few years for Persistent.
Yeah, but I think, I believe that they have got the best engineering background, and, there's not much expectation on the stock. So we could expect some turnaround out here.
Okay, let's wait and watch. Time now to get in a sense of what dealing rooms are recommending in the session today. Yatin Mota and Darshan Mehta are here with their channel checks. Good afternoon, both of you. Darshan, let's start off with you first.
Good afternoon, Neeraj. CESC is one of the stocks that dealing rooms are talking about. It's up 3%. The last time I checked, it's up 2.5%. But some of the dealing rooms do indicate that a large mutual fund is actively accumulating CESC on declines. So CESC is the first stock, and we're in the midst of the earnings season, so a lot of news will come in as far as results are concerned. So SRF this time around, operationally dealers are indicating that it will be a strong quarter for them. For the past few days it has been doing well. Today it's not doing well. And the other company that dealers expect a weak quarter is Hindalco. They believe Hindalco, as is the case with other metals, will report a weak set of numbers. So Hindalco is something that they are speaking about. But Yatin, what are you hearing?
A couple of stocks to talk about, and starting with Ajanta Pharma as well as Page Industry. Dealers for Page Industries are particularly talking about a block deal which can happen in trade. For the next 1 or 2 days, dealers are looking at fund action in the stock on the back of the block deal buzz that is there in the street. So watch out for Page Industries. Should be something that one should watch out for, especially after the correction that we have seen recently. Ajanta Pharma also is one stock wherein dealers are indicating a sell today, buy tomorrow kind of a strategy, purely on the basis of the future and option trend. Probably they will report their earnings in the next 1 week or so. But dealers are indicating that the short positions are getting built in the future and option segment, and the stock should remain fairly under pressure. So Ajanta Pharma is the STBT call that they are talking about. And finally, Container Corp. That is one stock wherein dealers do indicate that at lower levels, domestic funds are accumulating the shares in the cash market.
Are your sources talking about the block deal in Page happening at a discount to the current market price? I think any inkling?
So Neeraj, clearly that will depend on the demand, but the stock typically is under pressure when there is a large block deal which is supposed to happen, and probably once that happens or the selling gets absorbed, probably there can be a case for bounce back given the fact that the shares have come down and some institutions are selling the shares. So once that selling gets absorbed, probably it can see some uptick post the deal. Of course, till the deal doesn't happen, that could be hangover to the stock price.
Run up to that, the stock any which ways has been bludgeoned out of shape. Thanks very much, Yatin, for that. Let's take a look at Page though and see the performance of the last month or so, and the stock price now at about 23,352. Last 1 month has lost about 3% but has been on a continuous grind low. Valuations have come off, but they still seem slightly more lofty. Vineet, would you track a Page, and would you be an investor after the correction that we've seen in the stock in the last 3 months?
So, we had a sell note on the stock when the stock was at 3,200, 32,000, I beg your pardon. And currently it has come off quite sharply. In a best case kind of scenario, we're expecting the intrinsic value of the stock to be around 29,000. So I believe that any values below 20,000 would be a good level to start nipping into the stock. We believe that, you need to have margin of safety out here before you get into it. Admiringly, it's the best brand out there. The growth story has been very, very robust. But, when the stocks get priced to perfection, somehow there is a tendency for the fundamentals also to, kind of soften a bit. So we would be watching out to see if there is any kind of slowdown in terms of fundamentals. If that is not evident and its new strategy plays out, then we would be looking to get into this stock. But at this moment, I think below 20,000 is the levels where one should look to acquire this.
Okay, below 20,000 for Page. I'm guessing, Vineet, that the others which have also fallen off, the Lux Industries of the world, etc., you're not looking to go out and buy them, or are you?
No, so go with the best in the industry, right? Absolutely, Page is one of the best that there is there. So we would like to be with the leader of the pack and who is showing very strong growth.
Now, Lux Industries may be up today, by the way, but if you just look at what Lux has done the last few days, you'll see that that too, along with Page multiples coming off, did see a bit of pressure. 9% up today, 7 days. After this up move, it's in the green, but otherwise it had lost quite a bit of ground, had this one. The stock which is trading at fresh highs yet again is Torrent Pharma, both a technical and a fundamental view. Firstly, okay, let's start with the technical view, then we'll move to the fundamental view because also need to get in the closing strategies. Manav Chopra, quick thoughts here. Torrent Pharma up 3% today, trading at new highs.
Yes, in fact, like you said, the stock is definitely in a very good new trade zone, and it has been forming a series of high tops and bottoms. And most importantly, every new high the stock has made, it has been accompanied by higher volumes, which is confirming the bullish structure and the undertone bullish sense. So this momentum is likely to continue, in the medium term perspective. Maybe in a month or so, will not be surprised to see levels of 2100 and above. So, I recommend a trail stop loss strategy into this, possibly a stop loss of 1880 on the lower side should be maintained, which was its previous breakout point.
Vineet Bulinchkar, would you be a contrarian in auto names?
No, our view sticks that we will look to buy into the auto sector into the fourth quarter. Right now, we are seeing inventory levels which are largely a drag. They could be extending as much as 5 to 6 weeks. So we do not venture on into the space at this point in time. We would want for the inventories to clear out and wait for that to happen. So I think that will happen somewhere in February and late March. So that is when we would be looking to enter the stocks.
Okay, let's get in closing strategies from our experts. Rahul Mohinder, I'll come to you first. You already gave us a couple of ideas, but if you had to bet on one stock as a BTST or STBT, which one would that be?
Well, I've got two. One is Maruti, which is going to be a sell call. We're looking at targets of about 7080 over the next 2 or 3 sessions. We're weak. We look at weakness here. So 74.70 being a stop loss, I'd sell into Maruti. On the buy side, I was noticing Apollo Hospital has a good breakout. So levels of 1380 to 1385 are expected. I'd look at buying it with a stop loss of 1320.
Manav Chopra, what about you?
At the current levels, I like, if I have to pick one, will be ADANIPORTS at the current levels. Mainly, there is a good breakout on the daily and the intraday charts, and the volume also confirms a breakout on a 20-day average volume, and the prices are also forming a high top. So I think a short momentum play can be initiated into this for a BTST, a stop of 384 on the lower side for an upside target of 398.
All right. ITI is one stock that has seen a sharp uptick today, 18% higher right now. That's about 112 on the counter. Last 7 days, including today's gains, obviously pushes it up to 22% over a 1 month period as well. Last 3 months, 35%. So not bad going for ITI. Would you be a trader here, Manav?
Actually, there has been a good breakout. In fact, taking a fresh trade will not provide any sort of a risk-reward ratio. And we have seen in the past, after such a breakout, the price actually does not see a positive follow-through. So I recommend that one should actually do a wait-and-watch strategy, let the prices cool off a bit after such a breakout. And if it continues to hold the support of 105, I think that should be a stop loss eventually. And only basis of that, one should initiate. So I recommend that one should look to buy near the dips of the support levels of 108 to 105 and keep a stop below 102 for a short-term perspective.
Okay. Stocks at the broader end of the spectrum which are not doing well, of course, include Jet Airways. Yes, AB Fashion is corrected quite a bit today, so do watch out for that one. And Chambal Fertilizers from the fertilizer pack too has gone down. ITI, something's happened here. That's up about 18%. KRBL 337 up about 7%. Rain Industries up 5%. Interglobe Aviation, incidentally, is doing very well. Jet may be falling off. Indigo is up about 4.5%. And Adani Transmission is doing rather well for itself, 3.5% up for that one. So good going for this stock as well. We need any thoughts on maybe a KRBL?
Pardon me?
KRBL? Any thoughts here? Yes.
Okay, the
rice company.
No, just stay out of all these stocks. Not tracking them very actively.
Okay, so let's talk about what is it that you wouldn't want to stay out of, but definitely would want to get into.
So we are very bullish on gas stocks. We have been recommending on your various shows also. We've spoken about Petronet LNG. We've spoken about Gujarat Gas. So we are very optimistic with that. We like the private banking space. We believe that ICICI Bank and Axis Bank have got fresh legs to rally and can be big outperformers even in a bear market. So we are gung-ho on the private banking space as such. So these are some of our high conviction stories.
Okay. Is the belief that Axis and ICICI will come out with a robust third quarter as well, or will we start seeing those numbers come into quarter 4?
So I believe that play it safe. I think one should be positioning for the longer term than just think purely on the basis of what would happen in Q3. I believe that there are a lot of inefficiencies in Axis Bank, and the new management is going to be very aggressive, and we are going to see a lot of traction play out there. So even if the growth does not come in immediately, I think there is going to be sharp efficiency gains that will come through.
Okay. Interesting. So do watch out for these names as well. Other stocks that have done well today include Vakrangi, which is up 5%. And of course, we already spoken about the likes of Rain Industries and HEG and Graphite India. So those are the other ones that have had a good move in trade. So good going there. Cummins India incidentally is down about 4.5%. So that's looking slightly off today. Rahul Mohinder, it's not a stock that comes into the realms of conversation too often, at least trading conversations, but a sharp fall in the last few minutes of trade, Cummins India, and a large one at that. Have you looked at these charts at all?
Well, I look at Cummins, but not extremely actively, as it's not something which I would trade very often. But we do think that there's strong resistance around this 860 to 880 level, and in fact, what worries me is the fact that it's coming off those levels. But again, let's try and put into perspective that the longer-term trend on this chart is fairly good. We might see a decline to about 815 odd levels, but again, that could be a good support for it.
Vineet, one last question before we let you go regarding the fertilizer stocks. Today seems to be a day where there's some amount of profit taking, but over the last 2-3 trading sessions, this was a really active pocket. Have you been tracking what's happening here and what's developing within the space?
No, we don't track that space, man. Sorry about it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Vineet. We'll let you go on that note. Appreciate you taking out the time and sharing your thoughts and views with us here on the channel. Neeraj?
Well, let's start wrapping up the markets, Dana. Flat close for even the Nifty Bank. I mean, you would call 60 points on the base of 27,000 as flat itself, and the mid caps and the small caps not too different. So the day post Brexit, we've not ended in the red, but it's been just very, very flat. Let me try and talk about some gainers and movers and shakers on the large cap space. Devina, of course, will bring you up to speed with what's happening at the mid cap end of the market. For the large caps, Indiabulls Housing Finance up about 3%. Yes Bank about 3% higher. Wipro about 2% higher in trade. Grasim has some gains. BPCL, Infosys continues on its merry ways, up about 1.5%. What's not done well? JSW Steel down about a couple of percentage points. Bajaj Finance down about 1.5%. Z Entertainment incidentally ends in the red after clocking in a really strong quarter. Bharti Infra continues to slide lower, and stocks like Hero MotoCorp as well as Kotak Bank have been a little bit of pressure. The one that stands out for me is Z, because the start was nowhere indicating that we'll have an end which is 1.25% in the red. What about the mid caps, Devina?
Well, the indices seem to be muted, but there is some activity within specific pockets and specific stocks. So just want to quickly run you through them. First one being ITI Limited. That's the one that's the most active right now within the pocket. So closer to about 18.5%, 19% higher. And that's coming in the second half of trade, and it's held on to it by the end of trade today. KRBL is the next one. Last 2 or 3 trading sessions, the stock has gained a similar amount. In the last 2 trading sessions, rather, you've seen gains of about closer to 15%. Taking a look at the others like HEG and Graphite, today's session has been good. Volumes have picked up. Gujarat Pipavav is the other one. Wakrangi keeps adding on day after day, once again locked up on upper circuit. Interglobe Aviation charting a course of its own, aside from what Jet is doing in today's session. That one's doing fairly okay. Rain Industries is up on upper circuit. You've got Torrent Pharma, 52-week high for the counter. KPIT Tech is the other one. In the morning session, because of its numbers, the stock moved lower, but it looks like the reverse has happened towards the end of trade. So the stock actually closing with gains of 2.3% on that restructuring bit. Petronet LNG is also a key gainer in today's session. Amongst the losers, Jet Airways, one of the worst days that it's had in 2 months in terms of the intraday price plunge that we've seen on the counter. It's down about 7.5%. AB Fashions, Indiabulls Ventures, and from the fertilizer pack, Chambal Fertilizers is down, Trident is down, and so is Spark, which is losing closer to about 3.5% in intraday trade today. So a fairly lackluster day of trade, not just for the benchmark indices, but also for the mid caps and small caps.
Yeah, it's not look all that great. Maybe the turnover too hasn't quite picked up, but at least the cash market volume at about 3 seem lackluster. Probably ending like that.
7.5 lakh shares, that's pretty okay for the F&O side. Taking a look at the individual contributors then, and then we'll go across and see what happened in terms of the advanced decline ratio. So fairly even Steven there, so nothing much to talk about. You've got Infosys, which is added 8 odd points. These are the heavyweights, so you would expect them to see some amount of additions. But on the losing side, ITC, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and HUL out of numbers seems to be losing out.
Yep, and the market, marginally in favor of the gainers, but that shouldn't be a surprise. Nevertheless, final thoughts from our experts. To you first, Rahul Mohinder, is there a higher probability of some bit of downtick coming in? I mean, yesterday everybody was saying that with the breakout that's happened, we are slated to head higher, but the follow through has not been that great.
We still can't call this a breakout, Neeraj. I'm very clear that if 10,930 is not crossed on a close with fairly good volumes, we really can't call this a breakout. It's more a banking rally, in my opinion. It's very selective play. I really need to see something more broad-based to call this a breakout. Even if you look at the US market indices, I still think we'll see pressure. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go back to 10,700 on the Nifty. So wait and watch. 10,930 needs to get crossed. Let's not jump the gun here. Once we cross it, let us conclude and find those stocks that look fairly strong. It's going to be hard to pick within auto. It's going to be hard to buy technology. One really has to do some searching, and I think that's what answers me that the market's more likely to be sideways than break out either direction, at least for the next week.
Manav, what about your closing ideas?
Like I've mentioned, the overall structure for the market still remains bullish, and as long as 10,500 holds, I sense this breakout would eventually likely, or there's a high probability for it to break on the upside. In spite of such kind of a consolidation, the breakout candlestick that occurred yesterday, there has not been a good positive follow-up today, but the yesterday's lows of 10,780 would be a very short-term mark that one has to watch out for. That could be a make or break level for the bulls at the current zone. So, if this short-term support levels holds, or maybe a consolidation for next couple of trading sessions, will not be surprised to see a good move coming on the upside. We have seen some sort of a positive move already coming in the bank nifties and some leading stocks going forward. So I think this week could be an important week for any positive trigger. If it will happen on the upside, we'll have to watch for the near-term perspective.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining in today and giving us those perspectives. Really appreciate your time. And with that, it's a wrap on this leg of Countdown from Devina and me and the team that put this show together. Thanks so much for watching. The market wrap with Agamotri is coming up.